So, and this is the front of the ship, which you can call a bow. This is the back of the ship, which is called a stern. And if you're looking at the middle of the ship, that's called midships. And right here, this is called a compass platform, where they can look to see what course they're going to. And one night, it was April 14th, 1912, and they hit an iceberg, and the ship sank. So, the iceberg would have damaged about here, maybe about here to here. Except that it didn't go like this. It didn't turn and then it hit it, but actually it turned and then turned again. And then it hit. And these things are called masts. And the masts, so maybe about right in here, there would be a place called the wireless office, where people would send they have this little button and they would push it a certain amount of times and it would make different noises like a beep. And those would mean different sounds. And then it would mean a word. And then once they got the word, they would send it to the people that they were wanting to tell. And when they hit the iceberg, they sent a distress call, which they just came out with a new distress call called SOS. So they sent that to its sister ship, Olympic, but they were too far away. So they sent it to all ships around them. There was one that was 10 miles away, and there was one that was 58 miles away. Except that the one that was 10 miles away, that ship was called the Californian. And the other ship was called the Carpathia. And the Californian didn't have its wireless office open because they didn't have two people like the Titanic. So that means that the wireless in the other ship was not awake. So he couldn't listen to the wireless operator who was sending distress call. But actually, since the iceberg hit in the front of the ship, it tilted. The stern went up in the air, and the bow went under. But eventually, the funnels fell. So about when this funnel fell, there was so much weight on the back of the ship that it broke and fell and made a giant splash, which could have hurt some people. But most people were up here, and they were trying to get off the ship. But the wireless operator actually was still working in his office, but once his office started filling with water, he jumped out of the ship. Except that it actually wouldn't be that far because the ship was tilted. It would be about 12 feet, I guess. But when the funnel fell, it kind of flattened some of the, they had already lowered these, but it kind of flattened a few things. But right now, the Titanic is actually in the water, and it about cut right here. Except that it tore a lot of things at the bottom of the ship, mostly. But some people are wondering if it tore from the top of the ship or from the bottom of the ship. But I think it probably was the top of the ship, because it would push down, not like up. So the stern would have broken, but all the funnels fell. So you don't see any funnels right now, except now but this the mast has fallen, and this mast is totally gone. This mast is actually just kind of lying there, except that the one on this one is totally gone. I looked at all the pictures and there was no sign of it. But they have taken up things from this ship, like they've recovered shoes, and they looked in the rooms. Except that the stern is so badly damaged, they can't really look in there because it's like, so the bow didn't, since it broke right here, the bow didn't have a hole, because if it broke, there would be a giant hole right here, a giant hole around this part. But in the bow, there's no hole because it broke down from here, which means that actually when the stern was going down to the bottom of the ocean, it exploded because there was so much air pressure down going on it that exploded. So if that happened, some people might have maybe survived from in the ship for a little bit longer, but mostly people didn't drown. They died of coldness. So, and also, since it had a hole right here, it kind of peeled off. And actually, you can make it look pretty good if you have a banana and then you split it in half. You can make it look pretty good. And this right here is the grand staircase. And this grand staircase would be called the forward staircase. Forward. And this one right here is called the aft. So, the forward was totally destroyed. And most of the things that you saw floating in the water was from the aft. But the aft was destroyed completely because it broke right here. So the aft was like gone. And then there was 3 different kind of places that you could have a cabin. The first one, the nicest one, would be up here, down on these rooms. And that's called the first class. Second class would be in this. And actually, when I was playing a game with my dad, we had this model here, and it actually kind of looks cool because you could see it looked like there was little lights. But one thing that my dad didn't like about this model is that there was no rooms. There wasn't rooms any here. But actually, if you want, you can tear this. You can kind of open this a little bit, and then you can see some of the inside on both sides. But actually, the water line would be about, maybe you could see about this much. You could see about this much. And the bridge, we could not figure out how to build the bridge. Well, this is a Lego model, so it had instructions, except that we couldn't figure out. And it's kind of hard to turn this around because it's so big. But the bridge is right here. It's kind of hard to see because, and that's where the captain could go and order different ways to turn. So, but the first officer chose which way to turn from the iceberg. He said go left. Actually, it would actually go right, because left would turn the rudder. This is called a rudder, and it steers the ship. The rudder would turn left and make it turn this way because it was pushing. It was pushing on this direction and making the ship go this way. And you can see, it's kind of hard to see, but there's propellers right here. And these propellers power the ship, except you can, if you want to go forward, I forget what that's called, but I forget the name, so I'm just going to say the ship would go forward. But when you want to go astern, that's what you call going backward. These two, there's one here and one propeller here and one propeller here. This propeller actually would not work at all. It would just have these two propellers. And when they stopped, they had to let out all the steam because they weren't going to use the engines for a little bit. So they let out steam from these 3 funnels, like lots of steam. So it was like the stuff coming from here. There was little railing, like ladders right here, and at the top there was like a little thing where steam could come out if the ship was not gonna move for a long time. So they let all the steam out. And actually, right here, these are cranes to put luggage in. So you could turn the crane. Well, it doesn't really want to turn, but you could turn the crane and put it in a little hole. And in that hole, it would be like luggage and cargo. And so it's kind of hard to tell how many compartments are. Me and my dad kind of argue about how many compartments were flooded. I say there was 6, and he says there was 5, but I think about here was 6. But all of the scratches was above the water line. And I don't know, but it might be that the iceberg didn't even touch the ship above the water. It only touched the ship below the water. Because it's like there's a little part up here and then there's a giant part down here. But there would be little spots pointing out. So like scratch 1 down here and then up here, and then about stop right there. And then it would flood immediately. But some people think that the Titanic started moving after they hit the iceberg again. Except I was watching a video last night. There's this new video game coming out called Honor and Glory. It's about the Titanic, and you can like visit the ship. Like they made it so that it didn't. So it's like they made like a computer, and they had the computer, and they made the ship exactly how it was because they studied the actual blueprints. And then they made a video game. It hasn't come out yet, but you can do syncing. So they have it on YouTube. There's a video of it's the 2 hour and 30 minutes sinking Titanic, but starts about 11:38, and then they hit the iceberg. And I was watching a little bit of that last night, except that they didn't think that it stopped. They thought that the ship kept going. But usually you see this thing, that's actually an anchor. But usually it would be pointing this way. But if they needed to stop, which it would probably not touch the ocean floor because the ocean floor was about 3 miles down, they had, some people can see this little thing sticking out, and that's an anchor, and there's one on the other side in the same spot. But this would turn, and there would be a little hole right there, but there isn't right now. It would lower down the anchor, and some people can see right here this little hole. There's a little hole right in the front of the ship, and they would lower the anchor, and it would come out of this little hole and down. And some people, not all the lifeboats were lowered. Mostly they had about maybe. So there's 2 right here, 2. So they lowered these 2 first, and then they lowered this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And on the other side, they lowered all the same lifeboats, except that if you can see this here is a lifeboat. They only lowered one of these because by the time they got this one, by the time the one on the other side they got, the ship had already gone under enough, and so that they couldn't get it, and it flipped. But the first funnel fell, but some people tried to get on this lifeboat when it flipped because it was just gonna drift off. So, some people got it on the second officer, William Lightoller, he got on this lifeboat and he was commanding. And there was 2 radio operators I was telling you. He was on there, and there was a doctor of the ship. He was on there. And then, so the first funnel fell, and this one, I was thinking of ways that you could put lines from here to here, except that the ship didn't come with, the model didn't come with lines, and usually it would not just stand by itself on the real ship. There would be a line right here, 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 and then here on each of them. And this one, it would probably have a rope connecting it from here to here, from here, and then they didn't have it, but there would be a flag right there, and it would connect to the flag. And I didn't get to show you where the third class is, did I? So the second class is here, and the third class is here. Down, you can't really see it, but it's red. And some people, this is actually called a whale deck. This place where it's like got the front of the ship and then it goes down and then back up again. That's called a whale deck. They have one here and here. And those whale decks, well, right a little bit after that, well, there would be a stairs, which these are supposed to be stairs, going up, and then there would be a fence. There's two fences right here, which would, well, you're not really supposed to go above, in front of those, but some people disobeyed and they wanted to go to the front of the ship before it sank. And I was one time wondering what these are. You can see them, these, they're little, they're but I figured out that they're vents. And my dad got me this little book that has postcards of different ships, and they had the Titanic, except they had a million of these. There's like one here, right here, one here, right here. It was like covered, the full entire deck was covered of them. So my dad said it must not be the Titanic, but it was called the Titanic for some reason. And so I was reading a book on Epic about the Titanic today, and there was a museum I was reading about, and it actually has like a Titanic model that I really liked. It was like half sinking, and it was like just above the anchor where the water was. So when the water poured in, the bulkheads went up to E deck, and E deck was about right here, about right there. And so it would fill up the first 5, 6 compartments, except that in the 6th compartment there wasn't a very big hole. It would fill up, and then it would bring it down, and since it went down, water seeks its own level, so it would just keep filling up and then jump over and into the next compartment. And it would keep doing it on and on until the ship actually sank. And some people think that it did not break before they found it, because they said that it would go up like this and the water would be going down on the bulkheads, which would make it go down like that. Except it actually broke, and then then the bow went down, and it went up and down under. Except that I like watching videos of the Titanic sinking, except that it's like how it broke, like different theories of how it broke. And one of them said that it broke from the top, one of them said broke from the bottom, and one of them said that it did a V, so it went like this, and then broke like this, and then went like down. Except that I think that it broke in a different way. I think it broke like this. But I was looking at a magazine that my dad bought me of the Titanic, and it said the different ways it sank, and it said that it might have hit each other, because it hit each other and then bounced in different directions when it hit each other. And many people did not survive when it sank because they didn't have enough lifeboats. Because, let's see how many this has. 1, 2. This one I think has, this one right here has 10, right here has 10, and 10, and there's 8 over here, so 18, plus these 2 is 20. But there was originally supposed to be some on the deck, except that they wanted it to look more luxurious, And luxurious means nice and comfortable, except that the ones that you got luxurious was really, really, really expensive. It's about $99,000 in today's money. But there was supposed to be some on deck, except that they made it so that there's not many things on deck, so that people, or first class passengers you could say, they had enough space. They had lots of space for walking on deck. And at first, I was wondering what this was, but actually, I think that's the first class lounge. And this, so that the ship didn't drift, or drift means like go away from the dock, they had to tie it around this. But some people, there was like actually railings that you could climb up on top of here, except that the railings, this was not as big as the actual ship. Literally, it was like 3 football fields, the actual ship. And so we couldn't include the railings. So, and there would originally be railings right here, except that I think that this white stuff is supposed to be railings. And some people will be wondering why there's brown right here. It's supposed to show the wood so that when you look through the window, it's wood. And in the back of the ship, which is the stern, my dad and me included this as an open promenade, like there actually was on the ship, except that the people said they went straight across, except that we added this. And we actually would have just went straight, except that on the ship it had it went straight and then a curve up. Some of the places, like you can see in the bow, they have a little thing that curves up. And let's see where else. Right here, windows and then curve up. And I actually thought it was a really good idea down here. It looks like windows because it's like 2 curved pieces, and then they're touching each other, and it looks kind of like a window. And one thing that I thought was cool when we were building it, that they included something, it's called a tank top, at the very bottom of the ship. So the hull is the very, very bottom, but the tank top is like the bottom. And the bridge, they could they could have these things where they would turn it they had it full speed, and then they could turn it off and then up again. But they turned it to a stern, so they went this, and they went this to reverse. So if they went, it's reversing because it goes here and then reverses. So that would turn it back.
Eddie, you have shared so much amazing information. Do you think they have any questions for you? Would you be open to some questions?
Yes.
Okay.
You over there?
What date did it sink again?
It sank, well, it said I said the date that it set off, but it sank on April 14th slash 15th, 1912, and it went under, both parts went under the surface at 2:20 p.m. Well, actually a.m. because it changes at 12. You over there?
This isn't really a question, but I think 1,578 people died when I watched the video.
How many people died, did you say?
I think 1,575 people died when I watched.
Yeah, that's pretty close, but I was reading some books about it, and it said that there was 2,200 people on board and 700 people survived. So that would be, yeah, that's pretty close. 75 people off.
Yeah.
And you?
How long did it take you to build that?
It took me half the summer. Because we started it half this summer. You?
I watched the Titanic before, but it didn't show in the movie all the parts of the ship, so I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, but that was actually It had perfect sets, so it was like the sets were exactly correct. But there was another ship called A Night to Remember, and that's about the Titanic, but they didn't have them exactly correct. Those are the two that I've watched. I've watched the one that you were talking about and a one called A Night to Remember. You?
Do you know how big it actually was?
It was 3 football fields, which is about 900 feet. And it was with counting the funnels and the masts. Ships that are built, modern ships. Modern ships that are built as the Titanic. So the Titanic was as tall as a 7-story building, and that means it was 17 floors actually. But modern ships, let's say I had a modern ship right here. The tallest the ship would be is like the Titanic would match it right here, except that the other one had a mast. So modern ships are bigger. You?
When you were when you couldn't figure something out, would you get frustrated?
Yes, actually. One time we couldn't find a piece, cause I think the guy didn't. We ordered enough, except that the guy didn't send us the piece, except that it was like this one has about 20. My dad said it had like 19,000 pieces in it, so one piece is not very much. So I had to find it the next day in my giant Lego box.